What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Operating on a rough voice today. I was screaming like crazy for WrestleMania yesterday. Had 3 matches to start that were out of this world. Kind of lost steam after that. Lost my voice after that. Plus cheering for the Miami Hurricanes baseball team. 3-game sweep over Georgia Tech. We'll get into that with a nice, robust baseball segment to break that one down. Also, of course, we'll start with football and everything happening with transfers going in, potentially coming out. It's active portal, and it might be, moving by the time we're done going live here. This thing's changing every 2 seconds. We're covering it here on the Canes Insight Daily Podcast. First, some folks are keeping up with everything in your case. That is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in here.
D's lying. He's lost his voice out of excitement for Carter Davis winning the kicking job.
Is that announced?
Well, I mean, the other Abram Smith transferred.
That happened? I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Oh, we got more breaking news here. So
it happened a couple hours ago, actually. It's not that breaking.
Really? All right.
So
tell Tristan to get a story up on Canes Insight. But anyways, yeah, so that's not a surprise. If you listen to the podcast, we've been talking about the fact that Carter Smith brought in to be a kickoff. Carter Davis, brought in to be a kickoff specialist from FAU. Was really doing a good job in spring making kicks. Murray falling behind in that battle, even though he was recruited by Marvin Malouf, the prior special teams coach who's no longer there. So not a surprise, but yeah, a lot of action going in now. I think what you're seeing here, which is good, is lower on the depth chart leaving, right? Isaiah Horton was not that, right? Isaiah Horton was a starter that left in that winter window. That was not good, right? You didn't want to see an Isaiah Horton walk out the door. Jared Harrison Hunt last year, that was not good. Taken off and after spring, having to replace him with Simeon Barrow, which worked out fine, but it was not cheap and it was not pleasant. So sometimes these guys leave that you don't want to leave. Sometimes guys leave that you're just, they're low on the depth chart. They need to play. You don't want to pay them. So I think you look at Murray, you look at Emmanuel Carley, the cornerback from Arizona, who just jumped in the portal. He came in. Miami knew they needed numbers at the position. They threw a lot of numbers at the position. Xavier Lucas, you already had Frederic, Ethan O'Connor from Washington State, Charles Brantley, Damari Brown coming back. Carley just found himself on the outside of that battle and decided to jump back in the portal, kind of like Terry Roberts from Iowa a couple years ago. Come in, compete, fall behind, out the door. Modern college football, baby. It's put up or shut up.
Yeah, and I like that take when you take him because of the upside, right? And obviously, it's not that it hasn't worked out. He just, because you can't say something hasn't worked out when you haven't even really seen him out there. But there's guys who are ahead of him right now. So unlikely he was going to play much. Was intrigued by the skill set, but I don't know if he was ready to be that guy this year.
Yeah, I'm seeing some people frustrated in the comments. They're saying things like, he didn't even compete. He got salty and dipped. Miami knew this was going to happen. They brought in more than they needed at corner. Right. These were guys that they had to fight for. These were highly recruited guys. In Carley's case, Ole Miss was after Michigan. So it's not like, he just was extra, but you knew that one of these guys was going to fall behind the others. So let him battle it out. That person's, whoever it is, can leave, save money. And you had at least had a true competition. I think that's what you saw here. Lucas looks like a first-round corner. Frederic was a freshman All-America last year. Ethan O'Connor, whom I beat out Georgia for, was higher ranked than Carley and just was a better performer. And then Brantley, I think, is more of an inside corner. What really hurt Carley was the return of Damari Brown outside, who was just outstanding when he came back. I was surprised by how good he was right away. After missing, half a spring, missing the bowl game, missing most of the season, he came back, didn't miss a beat, was outstanding, and looks like he's going to be a fixture of this cornerback room. Look, the portal's still open. You hope you don't lose any more guys. I think this is the one. You can't predict certain things. This is the one that if you would have asked me, I would have said Carley's likely the odd man out based on his spring performance. So no surprise internally, but portal's still open. You hope you can hold it together because you got a great room right now.
Yeah, I was going to say it's. I think it could be considered a strength of the team right now, as crazy as it sounds off of the end of last season and for most of last season. But you gotta keep these guys, right? They're still there's still the potential for 4 guys to leave. So not signaling that we know anything necessarily. I'm just saying, like, you can afford one of these losses. I don't think you can afford another one without having to go back into the transfer portal. I think if everything stands how it is right now, I don't see them going and getting another corner. Obviously, safety we'll talk about here in a second, and that's a position that we expect them to do work in. But corner, I think if no one else leaves, you feel very good about that position.
And this kind of like NFL, sometimes you sign players, they don't make the team, right? So it's not ideal, but this is just part of the process with college football free agency, which is what it is. I think the good news is Xavier Lucas, who was the highest ranked of these players, the highest compensated of these players, I believe, he looks like what you expected. I mean, he legitimately looks like a first-round pick. I'd put it with Manoa, guys of that caliber, as you feel good about this guy being an NFL player and a high-round NFL player. We saw Frederic last year. He hasn't played in spring because he was banged up, but, we saw enough in spring, or sorry, in the season, and you saw what he did in the bowl game. O'Connor, the reason Carley didn't work out, I think he was tall. He had some movement ability, but I think the quicker guys gave him trouble, which you thought might be the case based on some of the things that happened to him, but you hope that he'd be able to use his length and kind of adjust. That didn't really happen to the level that like a Damari Brown was able to use his size to his advantage. And I think that was really the difference. Really, when Damari came back, you knew Carley was probably on the way out. You weren't sure what was happening with Damari. You didn't have him the whole season. And then in the bowl, he was out too. First half of spring, he was out. But he really looked good at corner. Maybe he moves to nickel, maybe moves to safety. Who knows? Who knows where all these guys end up? But I think your best corners are still in the building after this move.
James Kane asking, so when are we going to actually land someone in the portal? We're going to get into a list of guys now here that these visits are starting now. So it's always tricky with the portal, right? Because you're kind of at that point where you know what's in, there still could be more that enter, but it's you've been working on guys now for a week plus here. But in the beginning, you don't want to overcommit to a certain position or to a certain player because you just don't know what's out there still. So I think you're at the point now where these visits are set up. We'll get into the names now in specific, but I would say you land a couple this week.
Yeah, and just going through some visits here. So these are more depth guys. I keep saying I expect a big bullet at receiver. Be a big bullet meaning big financial commitment, starter caliber player that you're really investing a ton in. Not that these guys you're not investing in, but the higher end of the cap. I would expect that a receiver and safety. The names I'm listing for you guys are not that. They're still valued commodities if you can get them. They're going to help your team, but they're not that. So starting with Charmar Brown, the running back out of North Dakota State, obviously one of the best programs in FCS year after year. This guy's from Omaha, Nebraska, 5'11", 214, really productive at the FCS level, over 1,100 yards, 15 touchdowns. Won the Jerry Rice Award as a top freshman in America at the FCS level, which, that name sounds familiar. Obviously, Jerry Rice is, but it's a Jerry Rice Award. Sounds familiar. It's because a lot of these guys end up being great players. I'll give you an example. A guy named Cam Ward won in 2010. Trey Lance won in 2019. Shador Sanders won in 2021. Some pretty good players. Cooper Kupp, guy who's exceptional pro, just going down the line. Chase Edmonds and Terrence West, both NFL running backs, won this award. Of course, Charmar Marty Brown. I don't know why you'd have a nickname if your name was Charmar. I would just go with Charmar. His Charmar is his actual name. Marty's his nickname. Why would he get a nickname like Marty? Just be Charmar.
Marty's a good nickname, man.
I know Charmar. It's like a Pokemon name. Yeah, I would embrace that. It's pretty cool. But anyways, so he'll be visiting. Productive player. You have Fletcher. You have Lyle. Those are your rocks. But you saw 3 running backs get carries last year between Lyle, Fletcher, and Martinez. Martinez off to the draft. Charmar Brown makes sense as a plug-and-play option. Defensive tackle Braxton Felly out of Boise State. This is a person originally from Orem, Utah. You saw him in the playoffs against Penn State. Really battled against that big, physical, high-end Big Ten offensive line. 6'1", 297, 24 tackles, 5.5 sacks. Again, this is not going to be like a Barrow where you expect to bring in an all-conference first-team player or like a Walter Nolan for Ole Miss as a first-round player. But I think for depth, you could do worse as somebody who's played in the playoff and has had production.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned a guy like you did a show on David Stone over the weekend. At that position, I think we should probably just talk about it real quick, D, since obviously he withdrew his name from the portal, and that was a name of interest for Canes fans. I mean, from my read on the situation, talking to people, there's an understanding that they feel pretty good about the top like 3 guys at D tackle, and you bring in a guy who can have a chance to compete, right? It's not like anything's set in stone, right? But no pun intended there. But Stone was in a similar situation last year at Oklahoma. The reports have been good that he had a strong spring and was progressing for them. I don't know that he comes to Miami and is anything more than DT 3 or 4 this year. And that's not to say he can't be the dude in a year, but just putting yourself in his situation, I don't think Miami was going to sit there and promise him any sort of starting position.
No, absolutely not. And look, I see people calling this portal class mid. The portal's not closed, right? In some ways, I want the portal to close because I want our guys to stay that we're trying to keep. And look, I should also say this because I mentioned this on the board on CanesInsight.com, 7 million posts and counting, sign up for free today. But I have not mentioned it on this show, which is there's a limited amount of money, right? That's the real world. Miami's known as a big spender by every single team in the country. So Miami's on the high end of the spending, but there's still limited money, right? The money's not unlimited. There is a large part of this, which is the retention of your own players, right? We talk about, hey, I'd love to get that player. I'd love to get this player. Every team in the country is trying to win. Every team in the country is trying to spend. And there's a lot of different pocketbooks. There are major teams that have circled players on Miami's roster that would melt down the boards if they left, who other teams are trying to get, right? So you could assume that with every team. I'm sure Ryan Williams for Alabama has gotten some pretty hefty offers, right? Just that kind of guy. So our own guys are getting those offers. So there's a renegotiation process. There's a retention process to this, which Miami needs to handle, which, again, is a strain on limited resources. That does not mean Miami is not going to add a player. I said I expect a starting caliber receiver, starting caliber safety on top potential depth options at those positions. So we'll see if that gets done. I hope it does. I think it will be. But you still got to retain your own roster. That's why, as much as I'd love for Miami to say, hey, we'll throw $1 million at David Stone, who just went back in the portal. It's hard when you got to worry about all these things, adding a starting receiver, adding a starting safety, keeping your own talent together. So very complicated process here with the portal. This is uncharted territory because the contracts are such. It's not like the NFL where there's some certainty and you got to kind of figure it out. So we'll see. So we're talking about depth options here, but I don't know who's going to enter before the week is done. I'm sure there's renegotiations going on across the country. Some of those are going to go south. Some of those will get resolved and you'll never know about it. Same thing on our end. So you got to let the dust settle a little bit. I'm not worried. I don't sense panic from other schools from our coaches. We'll see where this thing ends.
Yeah. And I mean, again, like you said, and like I mentioned moments ago, like they're kind of in the middle of this portal process, right? So obviously you want to continue to keep the guys on your roster, but there's going to be big names that are not in the portal just yet that do enter. So,
right. I mean, again, they're negotiating with their own teams. So not all of them are going to get what they want. Some will, you know? So go into some other names visiting wide receiver. I mentioned Miami's in the market for a wide receiver 1. Somebody that's kind of like on the border. I wouldn't call him a 1, but I would say is probably a more upside than some of the other guys on this list. Keelan Marion, the wide receiver kick returner from BYU, originally from Atlanta. And the interesting thing about this guy, 6', 195, only 346 receiving yards last year, but was an All-America kick returner. Had 2 kick return touchdowns, also 21 carries, so very versatile. And he was in position to potentially be the number 1 receiver for BYU this year. Cooper Batania, a guy who's been in the scouting world for a while now, works for 247. He watched film on this guy and he says he's potentially a Sunday player. He's going to give him a high grade in the portal. I wouldn't say he's like a number 1, but he's probably in the higher end of he's probably in between like depth add and impact add. Definitely impactful kick returner. So he has significant Miami interest. Tony Johnson, a wide receiver from Cincinnati, originally from Ocala, walked on at FAU, transferred to Cincinnati, 449 yards last year, 4 touchdowns, 5'10", 187. He'll be visiting this Thursday, so another depth option.
Derek Lawrence is going to end up at Colorado.
He could. They stack their receivers. Johnny Lagoon says, by the way, great success at the team store with the Tony and Upshaw meetup. Tony's a really popular kid, and Upshaw's a great kid. Super nice. I think both those guys are going to be impact players. By the way, Pete, why don't you pull up the Miami Hurricane team store right now before I run out of my voice? Make sure we take care of our friends here before I run out of steam. But Miami Hurricane team store, they're always doing these signings. Tony and Upshaw, Johnny Lagoon was there. Many others were there. That was an awesome event. But this store is a great place to hang out. If you're just online and you can't get to the store, MiamiHTS.com. Promo code Inside20 works in person, works on the store. 30% off your headwear. You got the Centennial stuff there. This sale's not going to be going on too long. The 30% headwear. Get your hats. It's the summer. It's hot. You need to protect yourself, protect your face. Get your Canes hats for the summer now. Miami HTS. Promo code Insight 20%. Or Insight, promo code Insight 20 for 20% off your first item.
Look at that. Look at the selection here.
Man, Pete, I need you to pick up the pick up the pace with me sounding like a frog, and you're sick too.
Yeah, I don't sound as bad as you do, without a doubt. I know you were recording something else this morning too, so that must not be easy for you. But
no days off on for Canes Insight.
Yeah. Getting through this list here, have we mentioned? I'm trying to see here. I had all this stuff queued up. I think we've mentioned all the names that are coming in here. For these,
but there's going to be more. I mean, there might be more by the time this thing is done. So that's just kind of how this process is. And Pete, before we even get to more football, one of the reasons I lost my voice is Canes baseball's cooking, man.
Yeah.
So taking 3 out of 3 from Georgia Tech, which was a top 15 team in the country, now 36 in RPI. The RPI ranking jumped up 30 spots. Now you got FIU this midweek, and then you go to Boston College at Fenway Park. Pretty cool situation there. It looked like it was going to be kind of a boring trip. Now it's actually a meaningful trip. Miami could, if they win that series, you're about over 500 in the ACC, firmly in the regional mix, and they're going to be favored in that series. So peaking at the right time, and I know somebody was happy about that development, Pete.
Our good friend Jim Sala, guys, Sala Astorita and Cox LLC, Miami securities lawyers. Alias Astorita and Cox is a boutique law firm focusing on securities regulatory matters, broker, dealer, and investment advisor regulation, white-collar criminal defense, complex commercial litigation, and securities arbitration and litigation. The firm aggressively represents clients throughout the country. Guys, visit salalaw.com to contact them today. And of course, thank you as always to our good friend Jim Sala, who, like you said, D, feeling a little happier these days with the way that this baseball team's been playing.
Yeah, that makes 2 of us, man. I mean, the big move was AJ Siskar, who was unreal in his start. I really Tate Darius too. Both the freshmen, outstanding. And then Griffin Hugas, the ace, one of the best pitchers in the ACC on Friday. So now you have a rotation that's come together. We'll see if Darius and Siskar can keep it up, but they've been doing it against ACC play. Brian Walters going to the bullpen, I think, really unlocks what he's best at. His brother, one of the best closers in Miami history. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That's where he fits best. That's probably his pro position. And in the outfield, you lose Derek Williams, one of your better hitters, but now you got 2 center fielders out there with Peralta and Torres. And if they can hit like they did this weekend, Peralta kind of actually cooled down a little bit, but Torres now heating up. Maybe get them both at the same time going. Defensively, they give you a ton. Torres in particular, one of the best defensive center fielders I've ever seen in Miami.
I don't want to go right off of baseball again, but I'm just sensing a real negativity in the chat right now about the portal situation. Loose Screw says, man, the portal's screwed when we're talking about baseball. Number one, we talk baseball frequently here. Number two, can we, and I don't really have the energy to go through a full-fledged rant. Maybe we wait for Wednesday with Mike for this, Steve. But, what are we talking about that Miami needs right now? What are we really looking at? We're looking at wide receiver.
Yep.
100% need a wide receiver that can be an impactful player.
And potentially depth.
And potentially depth. We're looking for a number 4 defensive tackle, number 3-4 defensive tackle with ideally a big body, but you need someone with some experience, right? You're looking for a safety. So you're looking at 3 positions here, right? I mean, I'm not saying that they couldn't add a linebacker, right? We've talked about that position, but that we're looking at 3 positions right now. We're not looking at like they need to replace a starting tackle right now. They need to if they didn't bring a Damian Martinez in last year at that position of the season, I don't know how that running back room looks last year. D. I mean, it's fine, but it's not to the level that it looked throughout the year, right? Like you had a lot more holes to fill last season to me than what you're looking at here. And it's a huge question. Let's not get it mistaken. Wide receiver for the situation that Miami's in right now with a new quarterback and replacing a top, a lot of production, right? But to me, I don't really understand what we're freaking out about right now.
Yeah, Nate, I agree with you.
Halsey, yes. Halsey is who's the other one that we need to talk about, the safety from Houston.
All Big 12 first team, obviously coached last year by Zach Etheridge, who's now at Miami. The word I got there is he is one of several names that Miami's looking at safety. And again, the portal's not closed. So I think Miami's intending to sign a top safety and a top receiver in the portal, right? I'm not saying Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, but a starting caliber player at both positions, on top of potentially depth at both positions. The depth at D tackle, the depth at running back, you're seeing those guys visit, and the depth at receiver. That's what you're seeing visit now. So the missing piece, assuming you can get some of these guys, is that wide receiver one and that safety number one. If they don't get it done, we know they didn't because they said that was a goal from the beginning, and it hasn't happened yet. So if it doesn't happen by the end of this period, we know that was a swing and a miss. I think they'll get it done, but we'll have to see. And again, it just takes one player at each position. One of those Hayes Fawcett notifications, and you say, wow, that's a great fit. Oh, Miami's interested. He's a Cane. Like Damian Martinez last year, like Simeon Barrow. I don't think those happen right away. Pete, I remember we got like 6 guys on one day. It was like Barrow. It was Barron, Martinez, yeah. Alderman, Deani Hill, a bunch of guys at once.
Yeah. I'm pulling up. I'm trying to see when it was that Barrow had entered, if I can find it. But
we got 1,300 on, by the way. Like and subscribe to this show. I promise you, my voice sounds a lot better most days. But we're gonna promise you that we'll play hurt to give you daily updates on the Canes. Again, the most direct, up-to-date info you will get. I know about that safety situation because I talked about to someone about that this morning. So that's up to date.
Interesting question here from Nick Isaac asking, did Javari Flowers cost more than Keelan Marion? If we're bringing him in as a primary kick returner, I would have rather had Flowers. Look, it's a complicated question. I don't know what the exact numbers were. I'm going to guess probably not far off, right, for what Flowers, his status as a recruit, and Marion, a guy who's getting legit NFL buzz is. But I guess if you're Miami, you're looking at it like, we believe Marion's already shown he's an all-conference first-team returner right now. Not to say that, again, not to go back on the Flowers recruitment, like they wanted Flowers, but if you're Miami, you're getting a guy who's already proven as an all-conference player, and he's going to potentially help you in your biggest position of need right now, which is wide receiver. Flowers, although he could probably be one of the top 3 or 4 returners in the country this year, I'm not going to discount that. I don't know if he's like playing right away as a corner.
Yeah, and you hope that Fitzgerald from Columbus can do some of that as a freshman as far as kick return and helping you at a corner.
Stephen Aveo asking the tough questions here, D. He says, what percentage of the team is renegotiating you think must be an insanely stressful time to be a coach? Any huge names you're worried about leaving, D?
I mean, I worry about all of them until the portal closes, but I think right now we're in good shape. But this is a competitive deal, and you're going to get pressure at all times. That's why this is just not that simple as saying, hey, Davis Stone could be a great 4th DT for us. Of course he could have, but there's trade-offs here. Trenton Breeze saying, get some honey, D. Yeah, I've slammed about half a bottle before I came here. Dr. Trenton Breeze with the diagnosis.
Dennis Taylor asking for a Shelton Henderson update. Miami has, been in solid position here. Obviously, the ties with Jay Lucas. I know there's been some stuff out there that he could commit today. I'm not saying it's a it's not out of the realm possibility, but that hasn't been completely confirmed to me. So we'll see these timetables have to be pretty small timetables here. So I would imagine something this week, though. I feel like Miami's in a good spot there, though.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be fun to monitor what happens with Shelton Henderson. I mean, 5-star, just so talented. Again, not just as Winslow with bigger hands. That's my comparison. Loose screws is a good question. Why does Georgia keep taking our leftovers? So Jaden Harris, who's really struggled at safety for Miami this year, goes to Georgia. Josh Horton, who barely played, even practiced for Miami, is now at Georgia. And you say these guys are at the bottom of Miami's depth chart, or they just struggled when they were at the top. Why are they going to a better program at the moment in Georgia? I think it's about where they're placed. So for Miami, Josh Horton was a guy they invested in a high school that they tried to get. Jaden Harris was a starting player, so that carries a certain price tag. Going home to Atlanta, both guys are from Atlanta. Obviously, Georgia, Athens, close by. They're going home, so to speak, and they're getting at a discount. So for what Georgia's paying and for what they get, it makes sense. There's a safety that's played. He has some physical tools. He can help you on special teams. Horton, he's had injury issues, but he's got talent. If he hits, great. If not, move on to the next one. So I think that's how you got to look at it, is what do they represent for one team versus what they represent for another. That's basically the best I could say. It's kind of like quarterbacks. Sometimes a 5-star might fail somewhere, then another team gets him on a discount and he ends up being a stud. It's about fit, and it's about what you are investing in that player on the way in.
Well, and like there's a question here from Juan de la Osa. He says, if we're giving up on young potential for proven players, why is Olen Lola still on the roster? Not every one of these decisions is let me break it to you down this way. If a guy feels like they're not necessarily going to be a starter, not necessarily in line for a lot of playing time as a younger player, they go to their coach and say, look, coach, because this happens, I like it here, I like you, I like being here, I don't want to leave Miami, but I'm probably not going to play much next year, am I? I'm sure the coach is going to be real with them. Look, you still got some development to do, yada yada yada, but we would still like to have you. Are you okay with what your role is going to be next year? That's not giving up on a young player to me. That's being realistic in what their role is going to be on that team next year, right? So that's the realistic. Now, if a kid says, well, coach, I'm gonna leave, does Miami and the collective go back and say, no, we're gonna actually pay you more than what you were paying you just to stay? For a guy who may not be playing all that much, that's where these discussions get tough. It's not always, we don't want this guy here, get out of here, you're no good. That's not how these things go a lot of the times. I don't think a Nikar situation goes like that, right? That's a guy that they like, but he wasn't fully healthy this spring. I'm not sure that he was I'm not sure that he felt like he was in a position to be a starter, and these situations come to what they come to.
Yeah, well said, Pete. I think there's two sides to it. The players also want to play a lot of times.
They want to play, man.
So sometimes they're not just content to just sit there and earn a check, right? They have limited amounts of years to play, and they want to play, and they want to make long-term checks in the NFL. So it's a two-way street. I mean, it just kind of works itself naturally. The key is you want guys that are lower on your depth chart to leave, not the guys at the top of your depth chart. And to this point, that's how it's been. It's not always like that. Again, I use the example of Isaiah Horton. Isaiah Horton was at the top of the depth chart, and he left. So that's not ideal, right? Riley Williams would have played, although there was more going on there. But, these are the things that you got to look at is, what's the circumstance of them leaving? Where are they on the depth chart when they leave? If they're lower on the depth chart and they leave somewhere else and blow up, all the best to them. A lot of these guys have talent.
Johnny Lagoon says D-Money was yelling at the Easter Bunny yesterday, for sure.
It was a combination, I think, of watching the Heat game when we were still tight, and then on the other screen with my kids watching the Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Bianca Belair three-way match. No good ideas to open up WrestleMania, which was outstanding. Probably one of the best matches I've ever seen on Mania. I mean, it was unreal. If you didn't see that, go check it out on Peacock.
I'm gonna tell you what, D. We'll keep this for Wednesday, but Arcane brother let us down, man. Arcane brother let us down, man. Pitiful from Mr. Dwayne Johnson. But
yeah, the more hardcore, fans like Pete are feeling it without the Rock kind of just chose Hollywood over WrestleMania. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that at Wednesday's show. Could have used him on the show for sure. Could have used him at defensive tackle. He'd be a good fourth defensive tackle on this team. He's kind of like the original Horton. That was a superstar talent on the football field. Highly rated recruit. Looked the part, very athletic, but injuries got him. Clint Hurt, another one. And I think Horton kind of fits into that mold.
Trying to see if there's any other comments to get. Oh, Kevin Dennis asking, and we'll do draft talk this week as well. Of course, I'll call some people the next couple of days and get the latest on all the Canes guys, D. But Kevin Dennis asking, Chance Arroyo goes first round. I definitely think it's a possibility. Someone told me a couple of weeks ago that, he could go as early as 20. That's definitely on the higher end. But it's going to come down to what we've said all along, D. Is a team going to trust the medicals, right? Like, he had one massive year of production. At his best, I think he's as good as anyone in this draft at his position. But that's unfortunately the side that teams, weigh when they're making these big decisions. I think personally he goes early second round, like in the first 10 picks of the second round. But it wouldn't surprise me to see him get in that first round without a doubt.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think 20 to 40 is my guess. The injury's hard, makes it hard. He didn't run a pro day, because he had a bruised knee, which you don't love that.
The no running is something that, again, I know how this stuff goes. They may have had some good assurances that teams in that range feel like they didn't need to see him run necessarily. They felt like they knew how fast he was. But that's the other side of it.
Because it was because of the injury. That's the part.
Yeah.
It's like it's just another injury kind of negative. I'm sure he's fine now. He looked fine at the pro day running around. But if with that caveat that injuries are a question, the question with him, I think 20 to 40. I'd be surprised if he goes past 40. I could be wrong. I think Mason Taylor and him go somewhere in that 20 to 40 range is my guess. And it's going to come down to, do you want the safer bet with Mason Taylor, who's not been injured, who has the bloodlines, who's also a very good player, or Arroyo, who in my opinion is the most upside of any tight end in this class, my personal opinion. We'll see how it plays out because of his speed, the fluidity, the body, the physicality. He's got, to me, the total package, but he's got to play. So a little bit robust with that one, but I think he's better than Njoku coming out, my personal opinion. And Njoku's had a lot of success in the NFL, made a lot of money. So if you can get a better version of Njoku, I think you're doing pretty good. And we'll see where it goes.
I will say I did see Mason Taylor out at the spring game in orange and green out there, man.
Big boy, man.
Yeah, gotta get another year eligibility for him, man. Come play with Pops.
Well, let's see. Thoughts on Miami insider saying he covered Luke Nickel for a while now and he hasn't seen it from Nickel. This insider says he believes Cole is the guy. What's your opinion? I don't know who that is. Or I don't know who you're referring to. But to me, Nickel, he's one of the best players in Georgia. Right, he certainly showed a lot of leadership and playmaking there during that run. Was outstanding, dominant, great team around him. But he was the guy making it happen. Then
I think if Nickel has something, it is it. I think that's what he's got. I think that's his best attribute. I think it's the other stuff that he's got to figure out, and which he was coming along at the end of spring there, and we saw in the spring game some nice plays. But I think that's the issue more than anything. I think he's got the it factor, but can everything else in terms of the physical stuff catch up to speed?
Yeah, I wish he looked like Justin Herbert. I wish both these guys, Coleman too, had that kind of stature. But as far as the instincts and the playmaking and the leadership, that was something he showed in high school. It's something you saw to a degree on Green Tree. He wasn't afraid to throw. He was making plays. He was making negative plays too. But I think I'd rather have a guy that's trying to make plays and figuring out his limits than someone who's afraid to make plays, because you can eventually calm down and learn the game, and the game could slow down. So my personal opinion, you guys saw in the spring game, those of you who were there, Luke showed some real flashes. I feel, if you ask me, of all the quarterbacks besides Beck, who do I feel best about? My personal opinion, I feel best about Nickel, and it's by a good amount. But, if Emery comes back, I think he'd be the favorite to be backup for sure. But Nickel's, to me, developing at the right track, and we'll see. You don't really know about any of these guys until they play games in college. The live bullets, it's a whole different animal.
Getting some questions here about the Syracuse D tackle who entered the portal. I'm trying to pull his name up. I saw it earlier as well. He's the top guy in the portal right now.
I think Ohio State is a team to watch there. because Ohio State's got a major need at defensive line. They don't have many major needs, but they lost 4 defensive linemen to the pros, and they have not necessarily like
Murad Watson.
Yeah. Ohio State hasn't necessarily lined up replacements for all those guys. So I think the team to watch with any top defensive tackles, Ohio State, because they got money, they're going to spend it, and that's where they want to spend it. They have so much elsewhere. I think D-line is what you'll see in Ohio State spending or Georgia spending. Those two schools lost so much up front. I think they're going to spend there. Georgia more on the end than inside, but Ohio State both.
904 Hurricane said he didn't tell you who it was purposely because he wanted your honest opinion.
All right, well, that's my honest opinion, man. I don't agree, but listen, we'll see how it goes. But I think if you want to see what Luke Nichols is about, watch some of his full games from his playoff run so you can see the playmaking. But that's high school. It's not college. We'll see in college when they can hit him.
All right. We're going to wrap this thing up, D, because of the voice situation. We got anything else to share here?
Yeah, no, usually I'd be on here for an hour straight, but yeah, I'm running on empty. 1,700 on live though, man. I'm kind of regretting not being 100%. I just don't want to kill anybody's ear.
I mean, listen, if there's any last questions here, we'll see if there's any more we get to here. Nick Isaac saying Micah Hudson back to Texas Tech. I don't think Miami was ever going to be involved
like
in that one.
A lot of off the field stuff there. I'm glad he's hopefully more comfortable there and feeling good at Texas Tech. But yeah, 1,700. If you guys are new to the show, like and subscribe. No days off. Bad voice, sick, in a foreign country. P was doing shows from Florence, Italy.
Last year, yeah.
Doesn't matter where. We're gonna get it done every day.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Next week I'll be doing shows from St. Lucia. How about that?
My favorite place, the home, St. Lucia. Pete, remember I said on the
you told me about
it
this.
is a country music capital. George Jones is more popular in St. Lucia than Bob Marley, so keep that in mind. See if you can get some line dancing done. Go to a nice hockey tonk out there in that beautiful island. One of my favorites.
904 Hurricane says Miami seems to strike out on elite D tackles in the portal. There's got to be elite D tackles in the portal to strike out on them, and I don't see any. I don't see any there right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, look, Simeon Barrow's one of the top guys last year in the portal from a financial standpoint, and then he was a first-team All-ACC player, so I think that was a pretty good one. I don't know, elite D tackles, like you said, Pete. I don't know what elite goes in the portal. Walter Nolan, maybe, but
I mean, I'm not calling David Stone elite when we just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, potential for sure.
Yeah.
And the price tag was elite and he ended up staying. So I don't think Miami swung to strike out with Stone because the finances didn't make sense to them for what they needed and what
they needed. Exactly. It's not like if they thought he was going to be DT 1 or 2, I don't think they would. This is what we said in the beginning, D. You're not probably thinking twice about it, but if he's DT 3 or 4, I don't see it adding up.
Yeah, I agree with you. But to make if you're not going that direction, you got to get it done in wide receiver and safety, and we'll see how it all plays out.
All right, Canes fans, appreciate everyone who's been on with us live today. We'll be back tomorrow with hopefully some more energy here. Apologize.
Oh, our energy is fine. I can't talk. I could go all show.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're excited about what's happening here. Stay tuned to CanesInsight.com for the latest in the portal. Appreciate you guys for watching. Hit that like and subscribe. Go Canes.
Go Canes.